In this video, we'll be covering some additional Git features related to modifying an existing repository. By default, Git monitors all files in your repositories folder. However, you may want to add one or more files to your repository that you don't want Git to track. For example, if you save configuration files specific to your local machine or that contain personal information, you may not want that information to be shared with GitHub or the public. In addition, some system files, like DS store files, created automatically by macOS, may not make sense to add to your repository. To instruct Git to ignore undesired files, create a plain text file inside your repository with the name .gitignore. Each file you want Git to ignore should be listed on a new line. You can also include wildcard characters. For example, adding the line star.pdf to your gitignore file will instruct Git to ignore any files ending in the extension PDF. After creating your gitignore file, add it to GitHub by calling git add.gitignore and committing and pushing your change. To override the gitignore file, you can git add a file with the -f flag. For example, if you specify that Git should ignore all PDF files, but you want to make an exception by adding one particular PDF file to your repository, you can add that file by calling git add -f filename.pdf. When you commit changes to your repository's Git log file, the commit is automatically assigned a unique alphanumeric string to identify the commit. You can view those strings by typing git log. Alternatively, you can view your repository's commit history by going to the repository's GitHub page and clicking the commits list near the upper right. This will bring up a formatted list of changes along with their commit identifiers. Suppose you've made some changes to your repository and have committed them, ensuring that you'll have a log of those changes. Now suppose that you want to revisit a prior state of your repository, for example, from a previous commit, such as the one I've highlighted here. To update all files to the state they were in a prior commit, including reverting any moved, deleted, or added files since that commit, you can type git revert, and then the alphanumeric code for the commit you want to go back to. This will create a new commit in the Git log that updates the current version of your repository to the state it was in at that prior commit. You can also restore a specific file or set of files to their state in a prior commit rather than changing the entire repository. To see a list of the files associated with a particular commit, click on the commit history of your repository's GitHub page. Then click on the given commit using your commit messages to help you search. And then click the Browse Files button. Once you know which commit's file version or versions you'd like to revert back to, type git checkout, and then the commit's ID code, then --, and then the list of files you want to restore separated by spaces. In addition to restoring old versions of files, this command can also be useful for restoring deleted files. When you fork a repository, it creates a new copy of that repository that is under your complete control. You can also create multiple versions of a repository that exist on the same fork. These are called branches. Branches are kind of like mini forks. One common use of branches is when you have a public version of your code that you'd like to share, and then a development version of your code that you want to be able to actively work on without affecting the public version. To create a new branch of your repository, type git checkout -b, and then the branch name that you want. By default, your repository's one branch will be called master. If you want to make a development branch of your repository called dev, you could type git checkout -b dev. Any changes you make from that point will update the dev branch of your repository without affecting the master branch. To switch to another branch of your repository, type git checkout branch name, for example, git checkout master. You can also merge any changes from another branch into your current branch by first switching to the branch you want to modify using the checkout command. Then type git merge branch name to merge the changes from the named branch into your current branch, in this case, the master branch. When you fork a repository, you may want to import any changes from the original fork or from other forks of the same repository into your fork. For example, this can be useful when you're collaborating with someone else who is working in a different fork, and you want to keep your fork up to date with the changes that your collaborators have made. Other forks of your repository may be linked to your fork using the remote command. To run this command, you'll need the Git address of the repository you want to link to. This will be a URL ending in .git. It's the same address that you would use to clone that fork of the repository. From within your repositories folder, type git remote add upstream and then the other repository's URL. This will create a reference to that other repository that you can access on your local machine. In this case, that other repository will be named upstream, but you can replace the word upstream with a name that you will remember. When you type git pull upstream master, that will download the changes from the remote repository's master branch into the current branch of your current fork. Note that you can replace the branch name master with whichever branch you'd like to pull from. In storytelling with data, I suggest setting the main course repository as a remote server called upstream. When you collaborate with another student on a project, you can name their fork using their first or last name or some other easy-to-remember reference. This will enable you to easily pull changes from your collaborators' repositories into your own. On collaborative projects, I also suggest using the main course repository as a common reference that you consistently sync to. Before pulling in changes from another repository, and before submitting a pull request to the main course repository, for example, when you submit an assignment, you should sync your fork to the main course repository by running git pull upstream master. This will synchronize your fork with the main course repository. Similarly, you should also sync your fork with the main course repository before starting a new project. When multiple people attempt to modify the same parts of a repository, this can lead to merge conflicts. We will review how to handle merge conflicts in the next video.